Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 11th talk in the Only One Theme talk series. This is the second wave that the TechEds.in team at Venture Center is hosting. As you must be aware, this series is around innovation management, and we do talks on every second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. So today's topic is only OKRs framework. And let me briefly set the context. Basically, as you must be aware, OKRs are used for setting and tracking transformation projects. So often transformation projects require innovative strategies to achieve the transformation. And it is in this context that we are covering OKRs under this Only One Theme talk series. Our speaker for today is Mr. Sundara Nagarajan. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce Mr. Nagarajan. Sundara Nagarajan, fondly called as SN, is the Managing Director of Innovation Scale-Up Advisors, an enterprise development firm that helps innovation-driven enterprises grow business outcomes. IS's clients are digital businesses, enterprises in digital transformation, deep tech startups, incubators, and investors. SN is an accomplished senior technologist with over 3 decades of experience in large global enterprises and early stage companies. Recently, he also has become an author, publishing his first book for the first time in technologist entrepreneurs. So with this brief introduction, welcome SN to the session and handing over the session to you. You can. We're just unmuting you. SN, if you can just unmute yourself now.
Yeah, now I can unmute. You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
So good evening, good afternoon, whichever way you would like to say this. Thanks for joining this session. Most of you might have probably heard of what OKRs are about. So it's unlikely that it is completely a strange topic to you. But let's go into it in some more detail today. Starting from, this is the overall plan for today. Let's understand what OKRs are. This is an introductory session. And we'll then move on to where should we apply and how should we apply. And managing innovation projects with OKRs. That's the last part of it. Then I'm going to give you a set of additional resources to learn FAQs, etc., which will be not presented, but is part of the deck that you will receive after the session. I suggest you keep your questions, just keep posting them to the Q&A, and I would give you some break during the sessions to maybe address those questions. So please keep posting your questions. Okay, so let's understand what OKRs are. So here is a CEO who is saying that our number one priority this year is OKRs, but I am 100% behind it, but I'm swamped. Who can run with this? Is what she's asking everybody. So the whole idea here is that OKRs is expected to help you focus on your priorities. So if your number one priority this year is OKRs, and what does that really mean? So it's just meant to be in a lighter sense that people don't get what OKRs are. And OKRs are like marathon. It's very simple to understand. It's just that you have to run a few miles. But it's very hard to actually do because practice is harder. So that's what the analogy I will give you for this. So let's first understand why we do OKRs. Okay, so that's the first step. So this slide, I'm not expecting you to read everything on this. You are going to get the slide anyway. So OKRs will help you get focus, get alignment, get commitment. You will be able to track as well as stretch and adapt your goals. So when you're working with a team, even a team of 3 to 5 people, OKRs can be effectively used to keep the team aligned on an innovation project or a transformation project where there is a change that you're expecting. So the main purpose of OKRs is to do that. And how does it do that? There is a one OKR or one objective and key results that we define for the whole team. So everybody is working for that outcome. most of the time you would have seen in organizations that people tend to work on their own, and it so happens that they are not aligned in their execution. And we often hear the term strategy. So the term strategy comes from defense and military operations, right? And why do you need a strategy? You need a strategy because your soldiers are fighting on the ground and they have to protect their lives and their team members' lives. And at that time of in the middle of the battle, you cannot go back and check with your boss on what should be done. So that's why you have to have a strategy. And the strategy is communicated to everybody and they can operate independently. It's an empowering way of letting the team operate. That's why you have strategy. OKRs is a tool that goes with a strategy. It is not a strategy tool. It's a management tool where you set goals and you help them measure. So it's one of the tools in the tool set of strategic management. So when we say we are doing strategic management, we basically mean that we are managing with intention. We are managing deliberately rather than everybody doing whatever they want. Now, how old is OKRs? It's pretty old actually. It's not anything very new. So 1954 book by Peter Drucker talks about objectives and key results. And it was heavily implemented at Intel in the 70s. So Andy Grove has written this nice book called High Output Management, which also shares OKRs in about a paragraph. Okay, it's that simple actually. It's not that complicated, right? Then subsequently, there is a book that came in the 2017 timeframe, which is Measure What Matters, and written by John Doerr, who was a venture capitalist who invested in Google. And Google used OKRs and became very successful. So Google also published a video talk of about 2 hours, which covers about how Google adopted OKRs. Now, this made this very, very popular, and a lot of people started jumping into OKRs. And now you will see a big number of OKR consultants in the market who help implement OKRs. But my humble opinion is that you don't really need any great help from many people. This 1 hour session, if you can just really pay attention, you will know everything that you need to know about OKRs. And then it's all about your practice. It's all about your marathon. Okay. Now, I recommend 2 books if anybody really wants to go through. One by Christina Wodke. She was probably one of the earliest people who wrote about OKRs and in a very practical way. And the book is on the 2nd edition. And the other book is OKR Field Book, which is a practitioner's book, which talks about how to apply OKRs. So if you can just buy one book, I recommend the OKRs Field Book. That will be the best book to buy because it's like a manual. You can consult it for any practical doubts that you may have. Yeah. So with that, I'm moving to a short video, and probably this is all what you need as a training for OKRs. Just pay attention.
Now, the 2 key phrases.
Are you hearing the audio?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
Now, the 2 key phrases of the management by objective systems are the objectives and the key result. And they match the 2 purposes. The objective is the direction. I want to dominate, we want to dominate the mid-range microcomputer component business. That's an objective. You know, that's where we want to go. Key results for this quarter, win 10 new designs for the 8085. One key result. It's a milestone. The 2 are not the same, but that's the first milestone that in the next time period we can pass, that we can measure. The key result has to be measured, but at the end you can look and without any argument say, did I do that or did I not do it? Yes, no. Simple. No judgments in it. Now, did we dominate the mid-range microcomputer business? Then, you know, that's for us to argue in the years to come. But over the next quarter, we'll know whether we've won 10 new designs or not. So the objectives is, that's where we want to go. The key results are milestones, and the milestones are only useful if you can see that you're passed or not passed. You don't maybe pass milestones. These are the 2 elements of our system, how we run it. We run an annual and a quarterly version of it, generally. The annual version is done in conjunction with the planning process. When we put the plan together, each major operating entity puts together a set of annual key results, annual objectives, and key results going with them that At the next planning process, we look at and see how we have done against them, how we should modify them, what should be the follow-on to that. In addition to that, the more significant one is on a quarterly basis, each major entity sets objectives for itself in conjunction with the supervisor for the next period and sets milestones for them. That is basically the system. It's a very, very simple system. In one form or another, we have had in different pockets of the company it operating since 1971. As you remember, we were pretty small in 1971. We started it then. We stumbled a lot of times. We didn't fully understand its principal purpose of it, and we're kind of doing better with it as time goes on.
I will rewind it and play one more time, but before that, I will introduce the speaker. The speaker is Andy Grove. He was the CEO of Intel. He was also co-founder of Intel. And this talk is happening in the 80s. If you very carefully listen to this talk, you probably don't need any more training on OKRs. And you can also look at this like a case study. This is a real meeting that is happening inside Intel. So one more time, probably it will help you.
The two key phrases of the management by objective systems are the objectives and the key result. And they match the two purposes. The objective is the direction. I want to dominate, we want to dominate the mid-range microcomputer component business. That's an objective. You know, that's where we want to go. Key results for this quarter, win 10 new designs for the 8085. One key result. It's a milestone. The two are not the same, but that's the first milestone that in the next time period we can pass, that we can measure. The key result has to be measured, but at the end you can look and without any argument say, did I do that or did I not do it? Yes, no. Simple. No judgments in it. Now, did we dominate the mid-range microcomputer business? Then, you know, that's for us to argue in the years to come. But over the next quarter we'll know whether we've won 10 new designs or not. So the objectives is that's where we want to go. The key results are milestones, and the milestones are only useful if you can see that you're passed or not passed. You don't maybe pass milestones. These are the two elements of our system, how we run it. We run an annual and a quarterly version of it, generally. The annual version is done in conjunction with the planning process. When we put the plan together, each major operating entity puts together a set of annual key results, annual objectives, and key results going with them. That at the next planning process we look at and see how we have done against them, how we should modify them, what should be the follow-on to that. In addition to that, the more significant one is on a quarterly basis, each major entity sets objectives for itself in conjunction with the supervisor for the next period and sets milestones for them. That is basically the system. It's a very, very simple system. In one form or another, we have had in different pockets of the company it operating since 1971. As you remember, we were pretty small in 1971. We started it then. We stumbled a lot of times. We didn't fully understand its principal purpose of it, and we're kind of doing better with it as time goes on.
Okay, so what has happened after the 80s? Of course, this is from 1978, actually. What has happened after that? And most of the rest of the session going to be the important changes from the time that Andy Grove spoke about it. And what have we learned as an industry practicing with OKRs? So let me start with the definition. The current definition of OKRs is that it's a critical thinking framework and ongoing discipline that seeks to ensure employees work together, focusing their efforts to make measurable contributions that drive the company forward. So I'm adopting this from Ben Lamotte of OKRs.com. And what is important for you to understand is the critical thinking framework and ongoing discipline. Writing OKRs is not by itself the biggest goal. The biggest goal is the conversation you will have with your team as you write the OKR. So that is why it's the critical thinking framework. So in that Andy Grove example, if you notice, he says this is what we want to achieve and this is how we will measure it. But then the team has to question that. If they have their perspective, they have to add that, they have to change the objectives accordingly and so on. So the real value is that critical thinking, and in the process, the team understands what the goal is and how are we going to achieve it. Now, this is a good definition of it and a good visualization of it, that it's any strategy is about where are we today and where do we want to get to. That's typically what a strategy articulates. So they are visualizing this as a road to a destination. So objective is where what you want to accomplish. This is a destination, and key results is how you will accomplish it, or is an indicator of your progress of accomplishment. Now, this is the more detailed description of all this. You are going to get all the slides, so I'm not going to read out from the slides, but I will bring out the important points for you. So objectives are qualitative. It's very important to understand they are qualitative and inspirational. So this is broadly answering the question, where do we want to go? What is the destination? And can I visualize the destination? Right? Here is an example. Design a compelling feature, whatever the compelling feature is, that the customers love. That's an objective. That's a qualitative objective. Yeah. And key result is a quantitative statement that measures the progress towards achieving that objective. So these are indicators of progress, and therefore certain indicators happen earlier and certain indicators happen later. Now, in this example here, at least 10 beta customers sign up. We achieve 90% conversion from beta to regular customers. Is an example of a key result. Now, before 10 customers sign up, you should be getting meetings with at least maybe 20 or 30 customers. So that can be another key result. So the important aspect of key result is it is not an action you will do. It is not an activity. It is an outcome. It is not an output. For example, a key result is not I will write a user manual for my software or user manual for my product. That is an output. That's a deliverable. It's a project. It comes under the initiatives. Whereas key result is an outcome. It is something that someone else has to do. Someone else has to act. And outcomes happen through various means. Some of them are emotional and social. Some of them are functional. So the outcomes have to be driven through that. So outcome is always with an external person, an external group. So you set objectives so that people do not forget to work on this. It's an important strategic objective, but it is not urgent. Whereas key results add to the progress you make. Most of the time in organization, what happens is everybody is busy. Okay, no one has the time, and they are doing what is called the business as usual. So when you are making a difference, when you're making a transformation, it is important but not urgent. It is important but not urgent. Okay. When I say not urgent, doesn't mean that it has to be immediately done. If something is important and urgent, it's called a crisis. Yeah. So this is not urgent, and therefore people tend to slow down on that. But these are transformative. If you don't do them on time, you will not have the longer term results. So this gives you the rough structure of the OKR structure. Objective, it expresses the qualitative goal. It is transformational, and key results are quantitative, and they are also relying on the key performance indicators of your company. If you have established processes and KPIs, for example, revenue or profits, these are key performance indicators. They can be a key result as well. Yeah. And along with every OKRs, you also write why this objective, why are we doing this? So this is something that the team has to agree. And why are we doing it now? And why is it important to be done now? Yeah. And then you talk about the actions and projects that go with it. So these are typically the tasks. The tasks and outputs come into the last section, which is the initiatives and projects. So this is a structure of an OKR. Now here is another example. Objective, measure and improve engineering support for sales. So for helping the sales to make sales happen, engineering team will give support. This is the objective. That's the objective we are saying. Yeah. And we are saying the key results will be done like this. That is, document all engineering engagement with $100,000 with prospects, right? And I can score it as 1, 0.7 and 0.3. This is one of the systems that OKRs use. Okay. So that everything is done as a percentage. And 1 means 100%, 0.7, 70%, and 30%. So this is one approach to putting the numbers. So 1 means all documented, 0.7 means all but 1, and 0.5 means all but 2, and 0.3 means 1 documented, or it can be the result can be 0. So this is just your own scheme that you come up with to quantify progress in that. Obtain a baseline on technical pass rate by end of Q2. How many cases that we are succeeding is what we are trying to indicate here. So scoring is baseline established, 0 is not established. Baseline essentially means that I don't even know what is my pass rate. So far, I've been operating probably without knowing that. So once I know that, it will be good. So my objective is to establish a baseline. A third key result is 60% of account managers in one region trained and certified on product X sales playbook by end of Q2. So this is just a description of what's the outcome that we are looking at. And if you really look at this example, key result 3 is not necessarily an outcome, it is an output. But why it is becoming an outcome is because 60% of account managers also should get certified. Because they're certifying, it is their effort, it is not my effort alone. Right? So that's why it is qualifying to be that. Okay, and why this objective? They're giving a logic for that. And why now? Product X is getting launched now in Q2 and we must sign up for early adopters now. So that's objective and why they are doing that. This entire case is described in detail in Bell Lamota's white paper, which you can download. Now, here's another example. Usually I do this as a workshop, so people will answer for this, but this time I may not be able to do it. So I want all of you to just jog your mind a little bit. Look at this objectives and key results, and for yourself, write down what is wrong with it. What are all the issues here? I will give you just a minute to just write it. In the meantime, do we have any questions?
Yeah, there's one in the chat box. Do you want to take it now?
Let's take it later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them think for this now.
Sure.
So I hope you have had some time to think about it. So this is the corrected version. So if you look at the corrected version compared to the earlier version, you can get the difference. One of the important differences was there was no initiative. So we added the initiative here. Because this is a result of a critical thinking meeting. So people would say, this is what I need to do. So we added an initiative. If you look at the objective, collect all the money possible to be collected from customers. That's a little vague, right? So we are making it a little bit better. So reduce the accounts receivables outstanding to improve our cash position. So we are almost saying the why in the objective itself. So as a company, I want to improve my cash position, therefore I'm doing this. So for this, I have to reduce my accounts receivable amount for invoices aged greater than 60 days by 80%. So this is a lot more precise and measurable than what was earlier. So I hope you get a picture how this is working. Now here there are again an example of a good objective, good key results and good key initiatives. And I would draw your attention to some of the points here. Yeah. So if you notice this, there's this process called RACI, RASCI, responsible, accountable, support, consult, inform, well established. So this is another management tool which is often used to it's often used to define who in a team is responsible for what and who's accountable for that. So the difference between accountable and responsible is responsible are people who are contributing, whereas accountable is a person who receives the benefit or the downfall of that particular objective not happening or that initiative not succeeding. So typically accountables are the managers or the senior people, whereas responsibles are people who are working for them. Even the person who's accountable may also contribute to that. Support consult are people who are adding to the overall project, but they are not necessarily responsible or accountable for it. Okay. Inform are people who have to be well informed about it. So these are just properties that you can look at and actually implement in your process. Okay, let's take the question now.
Yes, one attendee wants to know what is the difference between OKRs framework and the Hoshinkan framework.
They're very different. In fact, let me not try to answer this question on this call because we are focused on OKRs today. You just do a Google search and compare. That's what I would say. They're completely different things. So objectives and key results are very simple tools meant for transformative or innovative goals and tracking them.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go forward. This is to talk about how innovative or transformative projects happen and why they happen. So exceptional companies constantly reinvent themselves when they are still successful. That's very important to understand. Many companies go down the drain because when they're successful, they don't do the transformations. They don't reinvent themselves. So this essentially means they are either doing diversifications or they are doing digital transformations. So when they do these efforts, the companies are doing internal startups. Another important phenomena with innovation is the startup itself. Companies that are designed to grow and become big. So whether you're doing a startup or whether you're doing a diversification or we are doing a digital transformation, all of these are temporary organizations searching for a scalable, repeatable, profitable business model, and they need external capital to execute their strategy for growth. That is the definition of a startup. Okay. And this applies to bigger companies doing internal diversifications or digital transformations, or pure play startups which are funded by venture capitalists or other sources of funding. Right? So in these contexts is where OKRs are most applicable. Now, this is a picture that I would like you to pay attention to, and it will sort of help you understand the way these startups work. Right? So whenever an idea starts, that idea has to get converted into a value proposition. An idea is nothing but a solution in context. It is something probably you invented as part of your PhD program, or you developed it out of your experience of working in a field, or in a company that they have experienced a problem and therefore they commission a team to do R&D on how to solve it. All that finally leads to a solution, which is an idea. And that has to first get converted to a value proposition. And when a value proposition is available and you can establish that there are users, there are customers looking for it, you can actually establish a startup. That's a starting point. So startup is that organization which searches. It's a temporary organization which searches for a business model. So it starts growing to achieve what is called the product market fit, which is the first milestone. Okay. Do you see my cursor when I move it there?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So what you notice is that on the y-axis, we have a number of active customers. On the x-axis is time. So as time progresses, you get more customers and you get to this point called the product market fit. And then you travel towards a point called business model fit. From idea to business model fit, we are basically doing exploration. So this is explore phase of the idea. Yeah. Once you have got a business model fit, you have the exploit phase. Now you are exploiting the value of that innovation or invention in the market. So you continue to grow and you reach a point called thriving, where you don't need any more external funding. Okay. And from that point, you mature your startup, that particular idea, and it becomes a market leader. Right. And when you're a market leader, you become probably less differentiated compared to others, and you also become the incumbent. This is how established companies operate. So take the example of a bank. So something like an HDFC Bank or a Kotak Mahindra Bank, they were incumbents. They're the people who are operating banking. Whereas the modern fintechs started as ideas and they started growing, so they are the disruptors. So this box that we are seeing here, startup to thriving, this box is the box of innovation, right? And there the focus is to get quality. There is no predictability. It's impossible to predict how the company will work. It's impossible to predict whether the customers will buy. So that's why you have this chasm here. So the bottom, what you see here is the customer adoption. So initially the technology enthusiasts and visionaries, they adopt your product. Then the pragmatists start adopting the product and the conservatives. So these are the mainstream customers, whereas who are in the front are the prototype customers. There are also customers who are willing to co-develop with you. And there is a chasm between them. So if you are not able to move from here to here, you are going to fail. So most startups fail here. People figuratively say 95% of the startups fail. But if I take also the technology, deep technology companies and their internal initiatives in larger companies, my finding is about 1 out of 400 succeed. 399, unfortunately, do not cross this chasm, right? So that is where OKRs are extremely helpful if it is used right. Yeah, that's very important thing to understand. So from explore, you move to exploit, and then you go to maturity. And maturity as well as post-maturity is also exploitation. Now, you have to also understand how a product develops. The product first achieves quality. You can only achieve quality first. So after you achieve quality, you achieve predictability. So predictability is about the business. Okay, predictability is about the business where it says, I can hope to sell this much. From that statement, I start moving to, I can plan to sell this much. That means I know how much customers will buy and my factory is ready to produce it if it's a manufactured product. Or if it's a software product, the cloud systems can scale or whatever. Yeah. So you first get quality because that's the most important property to achieve first in the business. Then you achieve predictability. Then you achieve productivity. At this range, you're highly predictable. A company that is thriving can be listed in the market as a listed company in the stock exchange. Their productivity as well as predictability is very, very important. Okay. So you start achieving productivity, and finally the product starts coming down because the market no longer needs this product, it's disrupted by somebody else. At that time, you do what is called the value optimization. All these are transformations, all these are changes, transformations, innovations in the organization. Yeah. So all of them you can use OKRs, but you use them differently. So when you are in the early part of the transformative phase, that is, you're in the startup innovation initiatives, you're doing a new business model, you're creating new value proposition, and you're unpredictable. There, what you do is you capture aspirations. What people have are only aspirations. I hope to sell so much. That's assumptions and hypotheses. And you have key insights that you're learning based on what you're doing. Yeah. So here, when you're doing OKRs, don't be too tight on the OKRs, KRs being achieved. You get your objectives clear. I would like to get my proto customers. That's my objective. Okay. My key result is I can get, say, 3 people sign up to try my project to co-develop. Okay. So that's my key result. That's ultimate lagging indicator. When they sign up with you, then that key result is achieved. Right. But earlier, I would like to have at least 10 people I'm discussing with. I should be making presentations to maybe at least 5 of them, and so on. So you design your key results in this particular case about the assumptions that you're making. But after 3 months, you find you have no customer at all. You did a lot of discussions, nothing happened. It doesn't really matter. What is important is, do you have insights? Can you now change? Can you adapt? Can you pivot? So that's how you use OKRs here in this phase of the project. When you are on the growth and sustaining phase, there, new customer acquisition, you are basically growing. You're doing new customer acquisition, new market applications, you will find new geographies. So here we have a strong evidence from the past. We have learned how this works, okay? And we can make decent plans for resources. I have the funds for that. So here I do regular reviews, weekly check-ins, and measure progress, and remove the constraints and enable progress. That is how I will use OKRs. Here, if KRs are not achieved, I should worry about it. And there must be clear root cause analysis and understand how we can enable the progress. What should I do? Yeah. In the last phase is the efficiency phase. This is when the business is stagnant and declining, and you are trying to discover new value propositions. That's what you're trying to do. So this is the most predictable part of the business. So here you use KPIs. You have a lot of processes already established with clear KPIs. So you use KPIs to control and manage the processes, and use KPIs for most of your management. Your management reviews are mostly going to be on KPIs, whereas your strategic business transformation reviews will be using OKRs. So this typically happens in a large company. Imagine a large, well-established business. This is how they will use OKRs. So here you have KPIs for the routine managements and your OKRs for the strategic management. And if you notice here, I said here weekly check-ins, whereas in the other case, I did not say weekly check-ins. It usually is done once in a month or once in 2. That is basically how they do. Now, there is always a confusion people have between OKRs and KPIs, or key performance indicators. So this already I clarified in the earlier case. Now I'm giving more details there. OKRs help leaders to turn vision into action, whereas KPIs help managers to manage day-to-day operations in a way that is predictable and I can monitor performance and improve. Okay, so managers use OKRs to achieve strategic execution, whereas the routine execution is done with KPI. So you use both. In real management context, you use both OKRs and KPIs, and that is how you manage your organization. Any questions now? Are there any other questions?
There is one. How much of the failure of well-established businesses over time and the failure of several startups be attributed to lack of implementing OKR and seriousness about it?
See, it is not very easy to find that because the reasons why large organizations fail in new initiatives and startups fail in new initiatives. This is a well-researched area. There's a lot of publications and books on that, and it doesn't usually correlate only to OKRs. OKRs is one way of managing, okay, one tool for management. But if you are using OKRs, many of the other problems that we are talking about will become more visible. You will not be oblivious to those. See, for example, one of the reasons large organizations fail in initiatives is they use the standard methods of managing large businesses, predictable businesses. They use the same methods to manage innovation initiatives. And that just doesn't work. Say, for example, if you start a new initiative and say that I want to have predictable revenue, you said you will get so much of revenue in 3 months and it has not come. And you fire the manager. It just doesn't work. That's foolish to do that because that predictability is not there. So most of the time, these initiatives fail because of poor management practices, lack of understanding of what innovation is and how it is different from predictable businesses. So those are the problems in the larger companies. When it comes to startups, very often it is something else. It is not; these are not the problems. Some people don't even manage. Many technology entrepreneurs don't even know how to manage. They're just technical people. And if you are not managing your organization, if you are not managing your system, and if you're not building a business model for your idea, that itself will fail your enterprise. Many of them don't even know how to talk to customers. So there are many reasons that will cause these issues. However, if they can convert their aspirations and their vision into OKRs, it will become much more visible. They can start seeing, okay, this is what happened to me, and how can I solve that problem? Okay, but just because you're using OKRs, there's no guarantee you will succeed. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah, there's one from Dr. Premnath himself. Dr. Premnath, you want to pose it yourself?
Hello, SN. How are you?
Hi, good.
No, I just thought if you can point out how you would, what would be OKRs for an incubator. On one side, say a vision to build globally innovative startup, or second, if it is the goal is to look at sustainability goals, and then how should we be guided by OKRs?
Yeah, so it is actually not a good idea to just give an answer for this because OKRs are very specific to the context. So I cannot generalize that all incubators should adopt this template because OKRs are not templatable. So OKRs is a result of a strategic planning discussion. So you will assess where you are today and where do you want to go. And that is just your own personal ambition and aspiration, right? And your organization may be much more mature compared to many other incubators. So if an incubator is just starting up, their goals are very different from somebody like a venture center, right?
Can you give
So
some examples though, of any given a hypothetical situation, because then it helps think through it a little easier.
Okay, so let me take not an example like venture center, which is a very mature organization. Okay,
Yeah.
You will fall into the mature organization category. So you have to use KPIs and OKRs together, right?
Yeah.
And you will also have to do the strategy for where you are to where do you want to go, right? Whereas let's say somebody is starting up an incubator today, totally fresh. Okay, their goal must be to become sustainable. In fact, if an incubator today is not thinking about sustainability from day one, they are likely to face problems because you can already see governmental level thinking is going into how do I optimize my grant to build better companies, because their initial experiment of Startup India and whatever they have done, that has yielded some results, but now they are trying to mature further. There are 1,000 incubators in India now. Okay, so if you're going to be one of the 1,000, nobody's going to sort of bother about you. No? You have to really find your place. So you have to say, how do I become self-sustainable? Okay, then the team has to. So the objective can be achieve self-sustainability for the incubator. That can be the objective. It's a qualitative result. You can make it more inspirational by saying that create an incubator that is perpetually present. Something like that. That's even more inspirational for everybody. So I would like to create an incubator that is perpetually present and perpetually alive. That's a very nice way of articulating an objective. Now, how will you know that you have achieved it? The ultimate key result is you have enough cash in the incubator to sustain its operations fully. Okay, that's a simple definition, because if the incubator at any point of time has a total operational cost structure of, let's say, you require 25 lakhs to run every month, right? That 25 lakhs cash must be available to the incubator in some form or other. Okay, so the net cash should be available. So you can put an indicator saying that the free cash flow from the incubator must be zero or positive. That is, I'm always able to pay all my costs. This is my ultimate goal, right? And like Andy Grove says, you can immediately check and say, did I achieve or not? So every month, do I have the cash to pay all my salaries, all my operations? If I'm running a lab, can I sustain that lab? All of that. Yeah. Now, I may have different sources of getting the capital. The capital may come from grants. The capital may come from a sponsoring organization. The capital may come from CSR. The funding may come from donations from alumnus, whatever. So the team has to think about all the sources that they have. Then they come up with strategies to say, how do I do it? And convert those into more leading indicators. Okay, leading indicators are something I can measure today, tomorrow, right? So suppose I say that X amount of money. So that essentially means I have to establish a budgetary plan first. I establish a budgetary plan, and then I say, okay, I need to start the operations. I need 1 crore. Okay, that probably a sponsoring organization is giving you. So there is no OKRs required for that. Okay, so that is done. There is no KR for it. Then I say that I would source 20% of my operational expenditure from CSR this year. Okay, so that's a key result. Now, if that has to happen, you have to have a leading indicator of how many corporates am I approaching, what is the likelihood of that happening. So you can create short-term OKRs, which are 4 months OKRs, where you start now doing, I want to achieve, say, 4 corporate sponsors who will give me X amount of revenue in this time. So that becomes the objective, and then you work towards that. So it's very, very operational and very much of a team activity. Hope this example helped you to sort of get a feel of it.
Sure. Yeah, no, that helps. Thank you. Thanks a lot. There's one other question on OKRs for management consulting company. If how to set these OKRs for a management consulting.
It's the same. I just said about incubators. I hope the person who asked the question also understands that how to do that for consulting firm. So generally, consulting companies do not get funded. Okay, so you cannot raise any capital from anybody. So consulting companies will have to bootstrap. That's exactly how they work, right? So you have to have your own strategy for it. How will I get my resources? Initially, you don't have the capital, so you have to see how do I get my capital. And if it is very trivial that the founder will put the money, so then you don't need an OKR. Then your OKR will be something else. I want to become a highly respected consulting firm in 1 year. Suppose I say that, that's an unrealistic goal, right? So you have to make a goal that you can achieve in 1 year, right? So make an aspiration that you can achieve in a 1 year, and then try to convert them into quantifiable milestones. What is critical is, in every startup, every early stage company, we only have aspirations and assumptions. Okay, those aspirations and assumptions have to convert themselves into quantifiable, verifiable goals. That is when you can do it evidence-based. So, does it answer your question? Should I give you more?
No, I think it does. Let's continue.
Let's move on. So now we are going to talk about managing innovation with OKRs. Here, I'm just going to give various quotes, okay, and just to help you. How do you deal with failure in your organization? If your firm or organization has no failure policy, you also have no innovation policy. Are you able to relate to this? If you are not able to, just put in post a question. But this is an important cultural aspect. If a company says, I want to do innovative projects, the company should also be capable of allowing failures. This is one of the reasons many successful companies fail, because the successful companies do not generally tolerate failures, and therefore innovation is always risky. People don't want to lose a well-paying, stable job, risking their reputation. So people play it safe, and as a result, they don't succeed. Yeah. And interestingly, it is said by principal technologist at HP, Hewlett Packard, which is still a company that is thriving and surviving. Oh, now it's all about the leadership. Yeah. So this is another quote. This from John Doerr, who authored Measure What Matters. An effective goal-setting system starts with disciplined thinking at the top, with leaders who invest the time and energy to choose what counts. Right? If you remember the first cartoon that I showed in the beginning, the leader is saying that I don't have time for OKRs. Yeah. So it simply shows they are ignorant. So that's basically what he's trying to indicate here. So if the leaders don't invest time and energy to what counts, what is transformative, it's not going to happen. In my clients, I always advise that they must commit a minimum of 1 day a week. If not possible, try 1.5 days for strategic initiatives. If you're doing anything less than that as a CEO or the main person, the main founder of the company, it is going to be not very good. Situation may not be good, right? So the idea is that you have to find the time. People say, I'm busy. There are so many fires to be put off. You have to think why those fires are happening. Can I empower? Can I build a team? Right? Now, there are small scale enterprises in India. There are like 100,000 small scale enterprises in India. And I have myself had a customer who was a 100 crore company, and it was thriving for 27 years. Okay, and that is when he spoke to me. 100 crore company thriving for 27 years. And this gentleman was the CEO. And he basically said, my son and my daughter, they are not interested in this business. So I am looking for selling this. And when I go to sell this company, the best offer I got is 9 crores. I'm a 100 crore company, and the best offer is 9 crores. But look at the newspaper, every other unicorn and this and that they are saying, and they're getting so much of millions of dollars. Whereas here is a company which has profitable operation and 100 crore turnover, they're offering me 9 crores. Why is this happening? Can you help me? So then I went into the details of the company and found that there is no team, there is no leadership, there is nothing. This individual is the everything. So if this individual is leaving the company, there is no company. Only the customers are there, right? And why somebody offered the 9 crores is because that's the cash in the bank. The company has 9 crores in the bank. So that's all what the person is valuing. And interestingly, this founder could not even read this. So I had to explain to him, this is what is happening. Can you see? So your company value is 0. And your company value is 0 simply because you don't have anything in the organization. There are no assets. You are the greatest asset in the company. So this is why many of our SMEs are, or small scale enterprises are dwarfing. They are dwarfs. They will not be able to grow if they are given capital. Yeah. The reason for that is they have not built a system. They have not built a leadership team. They don't have a management practice that can run without them. Okay. And when people build organizations like that, they are in big danger. The third thing, don't forget check-ins. So it's not enough that you just make an OKR. The weekly check-ins are very important. Again, I will read. This is from Peter Drucker. Without an action plan, the executive becomes a prisoner of events. And without check-ins to re-examine the plan and events unfold, the executive has no way of knowing which events really matter and which are only noise. And most of Peter Drucker's work was in the 60s and 70s, right? So these are management wisdom that's available to everybody, and it will be a pity we don't use it. Yeah. So it is important for leaders to always check where are they spending their time. And I always give them examples of people like the Prime Minister, right? Just look at somebody like a Prime Minister, how much time they can spend on individual activity. They just cannot. And how do they survive? They survive because they have a cabinet, which is a very competent cabinet. And those cabinet have so many departments and so on, because they're managing $3.5 trillion. So you require that kind of an organization. Whereas if you are not managing so much, you can probably have a smaller organization, but nevertheless, you do need an organization, and that organization performs without you, so that you can go and keep inaugurating new projects. Right? So that's how they work. And they give the policy guidance. Beyond that, the execution happens by the team and the organization. Say no with OKRs. Few extremely well-chosen objectives impart clear message about what we say yes to and what we say no to. Yeah, this is very, very important. Remember the example I gave you about the soldiers fighting a war. Okay, they go through battles after battles, just like executives go through battles after battles every day. So when they are battling, they should know what is important, what should be done, and what is something they can postpone. Not everything is urgent, right? Urgency is about when you will do it. Importance is about what is its impact to the business. These are two different things. Yeah. So you have the clarity through OKRs, then they will be able to execute without consulting the manager. Sometimes what may happen is they will just go ahead and execute it, and the manager may say, "Why did you waste time then?" Yeah. So all those kind of problems will go away. So the individuals will be able to do yes and no based on OKRs. So conversations enhance the quality of outputs and outcomes, right? So this gives you the most important aspect of managing with OKRs is conversations, feedback, and recognitions, or CFRs. So the organizations must use a collaborative management style, and that is where OKRs work best. When you have a command and control style, where the senior leader tells everything and everybody just follows, OKRs are not going to be very effective. OKRs are more effective in empowered organizations. Right? So conversations are about how an individual is performing. Feedback is about where the individual has to improve, and recognitions are where the individual is producing good results. So it's a two-way street, right? It's a collaborative work. And it's very important to realize that OKRs should not be used for performance management. It is not to be used for performance appraisal. Individual performance goals are set as part of the individual key result areas and results that you are expecting them to produce. Yeah, that's a separate process. It is not OKRs. Evaluation and compensation is important role of the manager, separation of performance management and talent management. So this is very, very critical to do. Now, this kind of gives you how the OKR cycles can be. You can have an annual OKR, okay, and you could have quarterly, you could have once in the 4 months. In fact, I recommend usually once in 4 months because it is misaligned with the quarter. Or you can do once in 2 months, or you can also do it like cyclic, where you have OKR for 2 months and then you have a 5 months or 6 months OKR, because that objective is a little harder to execute. So this is up to the organization to pick. But usually startups, these are, in my definition of startup, they are pre-business model fit. Okay, pre-business model fit startups, I usually recommend monthly. You should have monthly OKRs because they're only doing transformation. They don't have business as usual yet. So they should essentially do monthly cycles. And this gives you how the cycles can be, when should it be done. So do you want to do it in the cycle? Do you want to do end of cycle? Do you want to do it overlapping? These are all things you can choose. Okay, so these are the actions you do. You start with reflecting and grading that you do 1 week. You do the crafting for 3-4 days. And in fact, 3 to 5 days is generally an indicator. For a good, well-established organization, you can do that in 2 days. Sharing, some level of cascading, laddering, all that. And locking, you agree on everything and then you execute and track. So you have all these flexibilities on how you want to do it. So don't hair split on these, do what works best for you. And how do we track? Okay, so you have to look at the objective view, the measures, how they are coming. You should also look at the subjective view, the attitudes. What do people feel about the key results? Is there a risk of falling behind? What do we do? What should be the... So are we in this action trap? See, the idea of action trap is you have set an action, but it's simply not getting done. You change the people, you change the tools, but still it's not happening. So that's called an action trap. So when you get into an action trap, you have to go back and check the beliefs. You have to go underlying beliefs and values. And those beliefs and values may have to be changed, which can change only by experience. For example, if you have an action saying that I have to have 100% retention in the company, it is impossible to achieve. There's no point in trying to do that. So you have to keep an action that where I would achieve, let's say 15% attrition is acceptable, because that's like the industry norm. Okay. Or you may say, I want to do much better than that. I can only have 5% attrition. Yeah. So then if he's not able to achieve, you have to go back and check, is the belief right? Okay. It's an action trap that you're locked in. So can I go and check the belief? Yeah. And then you talk about the status tracking. And people can talk about yellow, green, red. I usually recommend people to use only red and green, because yellow is generally something where people can hide a lot of data, right? So my recommendation generally is to use just green and red. Green means I'm on track and I can do the KR, whereas red means it's unlikely to succeed. So there's a discussion, right? That can happen. Yeah. And with this, I'm concluding the main part of the presentation. There's a lot of slides that come with it. This is the book that I wrote recently for early stage technologists. And I'm giving you two sites that you can visit, Christina's site as well as OKRs.com. You will find many more resources there for deeper understanding of OKRs. Are there any questions? Can we wrap up?
Yeah, there's one in the chat box. Is it helpful for OKRs to work together with agile methodology, or are they completely different?
See, Agile is the methodology that one uses in software development and product development. It is also used in management nowadays, where you work with certain principles. There are Agile principles and Agile rituals. It works in that context, right? OKRs is an orthogonal tool. You can use OKRs along with Agile. There is no problem. There's no direct correlation with either of them. Okay. But one way it becomes very interesting is that if you're able to align your Agile sprint times with OKRs, then you can use it also for managing software development. So just like you manage business using OKRs, which is the primary purpose it is meant for, you can also use OKRs to manage software development, and you align your OKR with the sprints. So each sprint you have an OKR. So everybody knows what's important. And when they have to take decisions during the sprint, it becomes much better. So that is one way you can combine OKRs with Agile methodologies. If you're using Scrum, you can use the OKRs along with the Scrum sprints.
So, essence, since these are used for transformations in organizations, would you think that it should be aligned with the functioning of the, what the board sets as goals for the CXOs?
See, the board interaction with the CXOs happens in a certain periodicity. So let's just go back here. This picture will be relevant for you for this question. Okay, so typically the board will have annual objectives, maybe sometimes multi-annual. They may say three-year objective, 5-year objective, and so on. And then they do quarterly reviews. This is typically how most boards work, right? So this conversation happens between the CXOs and the board, and the CXO and the management team can decide to implement OKRs whichever way they want. They can do it trimester based, they can do it cyclic, or they can do it startup. Okay, that's up to them, depending on what kind of an activity they are involved in. Okay, so definitely they can be synchronized and combined with the board interventions. And it is the way of implementing the board given mandates. So the board says, okay, I would like you to become self-sustainable, or I would like you to up-level your current level of startups that you're funding. I would like to see more exits in the companies that you're working. So whatever is that the board is telling you as the CXO, you can take that input and then create a management team lock-ins that goes below that level. Yeah. So you can choose one of these which is appropriate for that and work with that model. And you can certainly mix and match also. Okay. So it depends on how you want to use it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Before we take one more question, Sen, let me alert the attendees. The feedback link is in the chat box. Please do give your feedback for the session before you leave this session. So there's one question in the chat box. In a very big organization, developing a strategy itself is a long time consuming exercise. Can we use OKR in such a scenario of developing a strategy?
See, OKRs is not used to develop a strategy. That's not the way to understand it. Strategy development happens independently. Okay. OKRs is generally applicable to a business unit. That's the right level of deploying it. That is, there can be corporate objectives, and definitely you can have OKRs at the corporate level also. if there's a corporate level transformational goal. Okay, so they can certainly do that. So which level you use doesn't matter, but most often OKRs are used at business unit levels, and corporate level, most of the conversations are confidential. OKRs, on the other hand, are public. Okay, so generally it is not used to describe in OKRs, but it may be private OKRs they may be internally using. So, for example, if a corporation says that I want to split my corporation into two, so that I can unlock value, if this kind of a goal, they will generally not publicize as an OKR. It will be a board level goal, but even that can be managed as an OKR, but within the board, right? Similarly, the board may say, I want to improve my treasury management, which is mostly about how do they use their money and should they invest inside projects or should they invest outside. So these are all sometimes pretty confidential matters, and therefore you don't publicize them as OKRs. OKRs are public. As you can see from here, the OKRs are known to everybody, and therefore it's a public information. So generally, corporate level strategies and board level strategies are not published to everybody because there may be legal ramifications. Okay, but suppose a corporation like Microsoft, for example, in fact, Microsoft is a great case study to look at. In the last 3 decades, there is only one company that has stayed in the top 10 companies in the United States, and that is Microsoft. Now, if you look at Microsoft in the top 10 over 3 decades, you can see that in each decade, the Microsoft itself was a very different Microsoft. It was not the same Microsoft. The decade 1 was Microsoft was an operating system supplier to PCs. Decade 2, Microsoft was a very different company which was serving proprietary tools for the enterprise. Right now, Microsoft is embracing Java, embracing open source, embracing everything, and it is positioning itself as an AI company, right? So these are corporate level goals. There are many, many business units under Microsoft, but the corporate goals can be driven through OKRs in such cases where I have to mobilize the entire organization and I have to change the entire organization to think differently, right? So company like Microsoft is the greatest example you can say where they have done this successfully, and Microsoft, of course, uses OKRs in their own way, and they are practicing some of these methods that we talked about here. And if you're a Microsoft Office 365 user, Viva Goals is the solution that Microsoft has integrated with Office 365, which you can use to track OKRs.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I did not talk much about is the tools, because very often we will come across a lot of software tools which do OKRs. In my last count, there were about 100 plus tools which did OKRs, and many of them are doing it wrongly, incorrectly. Okay, so my recommendation will be to evaluate the tool carefully before you actually buy. And there is guidance for that. If you go to OKRs.com, this website, there is guidance for that. Okay, any other question?
No, thank you, Aizen, for your time.
If there are no questions, I will just quickly walk you through the backups. So there
Yeah.
are FAQs here. There are different questions here which are answered, frequently answered questions. So please go through them. They will be useful to you. You may also get the same questions when you try to implement OKRs. There are 3 pages of OKRs based on whatever questions I've heard so far. Right? Now, these are 3 articles I will recommend you to read. These are interesting articles. This first one is by Ben Lamotte, which is a very good example of a complete OKR conversation. So you can refer to this. This is Christina's article on "You Can't Handle OKRs" is a title. It talks about how people are badly using OKRs and what all you should avoid. So that's a very, again, nice article here. And the third one, the questions to ask before buying a dedicated OKRs tool. So this is about software selection. So if you're choosing to, if you're going to choose a software tool, there are 24 questions that is already pre-prepared. This is also available at OKRs.com. So these are things that I would recommend you should pick up. And these are a lot of videos that you can get here. I don't recommend you go through any of it unless you want to become a guru on OKRs. But these are additional information more than this 1 hour session that I have given you. So you have to actually practice to learn. There is no need to spend time with these. But these are all videos that you can go through. Then here there is a set of recommended references. I would recommend Ben Lamotte's book. Definitely as a #1 book if you are trying to use it in your organization. Vetri Velur and Christina Vodke, I would recommend Christina as if you want to buy a number 2, it should be Christina's book. Vetri Velur's book is also very good. It's a very introductory type of language in that book. So you can look at that. And John Doerr's book, I don't recommend for practitioners. It is basically a marketing type of book, and it is to be read by CEOs and board members and things like that. That's the author. That's the market the author is looking at. And then these are again some interesting books which go into detail. And this High Output Management, which is a 1995 book by Andy Grove, is a must read for every startup founder and every first time manager. So it's one of the best books that you can find on how to step up to management. One of the best. Then there are a few other additional slides I have given here, which you can refer to learn more. And there are various traps, how to implement in a startup, all that is here. So just go through this. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate this. And if you have any more questions, you can reach out to me on email. Happy to answer.
SN, thank you so much for sharing these insights. Very valuable. Of course, yeah, the final test would be to make sure it works in practice. So we'll
Correct.
come back to you on that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Really
So
appreciate
my
it.
email and my LinkedIn are here. So you're welcome to copy it out. You will get the slides from the organizers. So good luck and happy OKRing.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, Essen. Let me also take this opportunity to announce the next talk in this series, which is coming up on 27th of February at the same time, that is 4 o'clock. And the talk is going to be around funding your patent filings. And we have invited an entrepreneur who has done this. He will be sharing his own experiences, his perspective, and a few pointers. So this is happening on 27th of February at 4 o'clock at the same link. So please be there. Do give your feedback for this session before you leave this session. Thank you, Essen, once more.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will stay on if anybody wants to discuss. I'll stay on for a few more minutes.
Yeah, there are a few more participants in case they want to have any questions.
Any questions they can ask, otherwise I'll drop.
Yeah. I think there's nothing in the chat box right now.
You leave a thing open, maybe.
You can unmute
Yeah.
and let people ask questions if they want.
Yeah. Yeah, we have unmuted the participants in case they want to unmute and ask.
And if you don't have any questions, you can drop off, please.
Hello. What is the adoption rate of OKR in India?
Very difficult to answer that question. I don't know the numbers. First of all, correct adoption or the appropriate adoption. My own understanding as a consultant working with people is very, very low. Okay, so it's pathetic because these are all good practices and best practices people must adopt. It has been quite hard for me to get real adoption. That's what I have seen.
Considering the infant mortality being high in a startup ecosystem, will OKR help the infant mortality rate in India?
See, OKRs alone will not help. Because as I told you, OKRs is a management tool. The infant mortality can be for many reasons. So most important reason is lack of customer development. Most of them don't talk enough to customers, establish a market before they build the product. People do product development before customer development. That is one of the most important reasons for startups to fail, particularly in India. The second reason I have seen is not thinking about funding. Because before you get into any kind of startup initiative, you should have a good understanding of what kind of startup are you trying. If you are trying a moonshot startup, that is, the challenge is also high and the potential is also very high. Moonshot startups require very high capabilities for fundraising. Good examples of that I can say in India are people like Bhavesh Agarwal of Ola. That's a good example. He is able to raise a lot of money, and many other people are able to raise a lot of money. Even the company is making losses. Right? And people can always talk about negativity. People can say, "Oh, these are companies that are failing and all that." I'm not trying to go there. But what I want you to understand is only 15% of unicorns in India are making profits. Only 15%. Okay. So 85% of those unicorns have raised money at $1 billion valuation. That means those founders were capable of raising capital professionally to the level that they need to do their experiment. So this is an important capability, right? I have seen many other technologists who probably have very good ideas. They have very good intentions and all that, but they just fail in raising funding. And that's also something as a skill you have to learn. So in my opinion, the latest analogy that I give to people is raising funding is like winning elections, right? And executing the startup is like governing. Okay. So unless a political party is good in winning elections and governing, they will not be able to make any difference. You may be the greatest governor, but if you don't win elections, doesn't matter, right? So the point is that, on the other hand, if a founder feels that no, I don't think I can raise funding, therefore I'm very happy doing with quick wins, that is fine. They can bootstrap, they can raise their own capital and do this. A good example of that is Zoho, Zerodha. These are all companies which have become billion-dollar companies without any external funding. But you should know how to execute that. It's a very different way of execution. So every founder first should know what is the kind of trajectory he requires or she requires, and what is the kind of skills that they require. So they should know how to win elections and govern, right? OKRs is a governing tool, right? OKRs is most suitable for managing the company, right? And most of the startup entrepreneurs or techies do not have experience of management. That's where OKRs help.
Okay. Thank you, Hassan.
So before we close this session, just a reminder to all participants, please join the WhatsApp group which has been created for this only one theme series, because all the details regarding the restricted website where the slides have been uploaded will be given on the WhatsApp group. So please do join the WhatsApp group. The link is there in your calendar invite. Okay. Thank you so much, SN. And I think we can close the session for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.